Hello, hello. Welcome to the Valley Football Blitz. Tom Nieman and Jay Elsen sitting here in Sioux Falls. Brian Shawn is in Fargo, and we live in a different world than we did 4 weeks ago when we did this thing the first time around, fellas. And we'll take a look at the standings here in a minute. But two of the huge surprises, North Dakota State's losses and who they were to. University of South Dakota, University of North Dakota. Brian, start with you. Quickly on that game, how did UND beat NDSU just a couple of weeks ago?
Well, when you start off with a special teams touchdown on a kickoff return just 13 seconds in, you start gaining that momentum. Then you block a punt and you come up with some other big plays. And offensively, just the ability to run the football really at will, running for over 200 yards against North Dakota State. That doesn't happen very often, but when North Dakota gets on its home field, and that's kind of been, the good and the bad of UND, is when you get on their home field, they play really fast, really hard. They use the energy to their advantage in the building and really play with a lot of spirited effort. And when they go on the road, it's kind of been the opposite, as what we saw at Northern Iowa last weekend. So that was a huge win for North Dakota to come up with their first D1 victory against NDSU and the first overall in 2 decades. But how do you follow it up over the next month of the season when you still got a couple of tough road games on the schedule? We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, 4 games left for everybody. And then USD, a couple of weeks before North Dakota does it, goes to Fargo and beats the Bison up there. How did that happen?
Yeah, just the third time since 1978 that the Coyotes had won in Fargo. Second time since 2015. But, big plays were certainly a huge part of it. Long pass touchdowns from Aiden Bauman to Carter Bell, a couple of those. And then I thought they controlled the line of scrimmage as well as they have ever done against NDSU, going back to that previous win in Fargo in 2015. And then the biggest point of the day was they took good care of the football, and when they had to have a critical drive at the end of that game, NDSU had pulled within 1 score. USD promptly marches it right back down the field, gets a field goal, makes it a 2-score game, and effectively ended it at that point. And that's the type of execution. Last year they had a lead on NDSU in Vermilion and couldn't execute down the stretch of that game. They couldn't stay on the field as an offense. All of those things came together for them on that September 30th afternoon in Fargo, and that led to a huge win for them, certainly, and set them on this trajectory where all of a sudden now they're a top 5 team in the country.
Here's a look at the standings right now. They got the Coyotes on their way to 6-1 overall. South Dakota State still up there at 7-0. But you take a look at this right now, fellas. We know I think we can drop off the last 4 right now. You cut a line between Youngstown State and Missouri State, but there's some 3-loss teams right now. Do you agree with me on that those 4 out of the bottom? 4 losses is always kind of the demarcation line between getting into the playoffs and maybe getting considered. And this is where we stand right now. Do you agree with me on that the 4-loss mark is kind of going to be magical or not, Brian?
Well, I mean, in the past, 7-4 would, in a normal year in the Valley, get you in.
Yeah.
But this year, I don't know. It depends who beats who here in the next 4 weeks. I do think there's going to be some 7-4 teams in the Valley, some 7-4 teams in the Big Sky, and really across the entire footprint of FCS that are going to be sweating it out if that's where they finish out on November 19th for the selection show. But you need quality wins, and then you got to hope the teams you lose to go on and play really good football down the stretch, because everything is going to be weighed and measured. And everybody's beating everybody right now in the middle of the pack, so to speak. So I don't know. I think 8-3 is where you feel really comfortable getting in. 7-4, you might think, well, we still have some quality wins and some good teams beat us. It all depends how the committee wants to distribute out the at-large bids. Last year we had 3 Valley teams. Do we get 5? Do we get 6?
Yeah.
That's what I think is yet to be determined.
Let's go back to this past week and just a quick recap of the week that was. USD goes to Indiana State, wins 17-3. Quick 30-second recap on that game.
Yeah, it wasn't a pretty thing at all. And in fact, the first half, Indiana State kind of controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. USD didn't have it a whole lot and therefore couldn't really get into much of a rhythm offensively. But Bob Nielsen challenged his team at halftime. They wanted to establish the running game. They certainly did that. Charles Pierre, Travis Tice, both end up over 100. They put together back-to-back touchdown drives between the end of the third quarter, start of the fourth quarter, really salted the game away from there. But overall, another outstanding defensive effort for this team, but certainly going to have to execute better over these last 4 games with some teams, South Dakota State, Southern Illinois, North Dakota, all on the schedule still. Can't afford another half like the one they did in Terre Haute on Saturday.
Big game coming up this weekend. But Brian, you touched on it just a touch. UND, after the win over North Dakota State, goes to UNI, and it falls apart there. What happened?
Well, I just think some things went bad early. You know, they get a 3-and-out, they get down the field, and then a 3rd and 4, and Tommy Schuster drops the football. It's turned over. Northern Iowa scores. They get the football, move it down. Drive stalls out. Goes down and leads to a field goal. They drive down again, get down inside the 5-yard line, take a sack, miss a field goal, and then a 70-yard touchdown the other way for Northern Iowa. And then you just kind of felt the air out of the UND sidelines just kind of go away. And that's been part of the issue is when adversity hits on the road, how do you build your own energy and still have that belief on your sideline to win? And we've seen how tough it is to win in this league, especially on the road this year. I mean, it was a challenge for even South Dakota State to pick up a road win. It was tough for South Dakota. Youngstown, 4-0 at home, 0-3 on the road this year. North Dakota, 4-0 at home, 0-3 on the road this year. There's a lot of teams that they have just another 2 steps in them and are playing with a lot more effort and are playing a lot faster when they're on their home turf. But these teams that are on the bubble, they got to find a way to carry that over on the road and pick up some tough road wins, because all that stuff is going to be factored in here at the end of the season.
Yeah, South Dakota State, as you said, bottom line, they go to Southern Illinois and win 17-10. And Southern Illinois is for real. That defense was really good. They got after the quarterback a little bit. Run defense was really good. Jack's defense on the other side, though, was outstanding as well to hold Southern Illinois to just 10 points and get a win, which is a win no matter how you do it. But the Jacks pull it out 17-10 there. North Dakota State beat Western Illinois 52-7. The Bison ran all over them. Bison might have the toughest schedule the rest of the way, though, for them. Youngstown State beat Illinois State 41-38 on a last-second field goal. That was a big swing. A loss could have eliminated, put Youngstown State on the bubble a little bit, but both teams are 4-3 right now. So the biggest game, other than USD and SDSU coming up this week, could be UNI at Illinois State. Both teams 4-3 right now. That could be the 4th loss for the loser of that one, but I think that's probably the biggest game other than the one we're going to talk about here in a second. What do you think, Brian? UNI and Illinois State coming up on Saturday.
Can Northern Iowa replicate what they did at home and take that effort on the road? Again, against Indiana State, they really struggled. They almost lost that football game at Indiana State a couple of weeks ago and then shut out UND. And again, that's a defense that gave up 41 points to Youngstown State at home and 34 to Weber. So that team's just been on this trajectory all over the place. So it's hard to map where they are or where they're going to be. But I wouldn't want to play them in November. And that's a team that usually picks up steam once they get towards the tail end of the season. And that may be the most dangerous team if they can put it all together week in and week out. Yeah,
and the loser will have 4 losses with 3 games left to play. So, all right, South Dakota State is at South Dakota. Jacks have won 21 games in a row. Their last 3 losses at Iowa last year, at Montana State in 2021 in the playoffs, and then 2021 at South Dakota. These are the top 2 scoring defenses in the league right now. South Dakota State's giving up 14.5 points a game. South Dakota's giving up 15. This is going to be a good matchup.
Yeah, and it's certainly not been the case in previous matchups. On paper, between these 2 teams, far and away the best matchup that we've seen, with SDSU being number 1 in the stats poll and USD being number 4. So that alone is exciting. The other part that I'm really interested in is the red zone execution. USD number 1 in the conference at 68.2%. Opponents just 15 of 22 inside the 20 against USD with 9 touchdowns allowed. That's 6th best in FCS football. But SDSU, 2nd best in FCS red zone offense. Jack's 24 of 25 on the year with 23 touchdowns. So something's got to give there. That's going to be a very pivotal part of this particular matchup.
Yeah, it's going to be so good. And then North Dakota, Brian's at home against Indiana State. What does UND have to do? They don't have to win the next 4, maybe win 3 of the next 4? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they for sure got to win the next 2, right? I mean, having to go to South Dakota and then host Illinois State in the finale at home. I mean, you can't afford to slip up against Indiana State here, a team that has not won a football game. Murray State has struggled, I think, consistently on the defensive side. You have to go there. Again, UND has not won a road game. Can they carry that momentum if they are to get it this weekend on the road at Murray State as well? And then, playing for their lives. But at the same time, these games for South Dakota and North Dakota are what is going to determine not only where they fit, but, are they for real? I think that's what everybody's kind of waiting to see. Are North Dakota and South Dakota really there, or are they not there? And we're going to find out in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, going to be a fantastic October. Midco Sports will have Indiana State at North Dakota coming up on Saturday, and the rivalry from the Dome in Vermillion with South Dakota State and South Dakota. And we will see you in another 4 weeks with the Missouri Valley Football Blitz.